The box of wedding invitations sat on Zeph's desk like a bomb waiting to detonate. Cream cardstock, gold embossing, the exact design she'd spent weeks perfecting. She opened one, expecting to check spacing, alignment, ink quality. Instead, she saw her own name. Mr. Kang Min-ho requests the honor of your presence at his marriage to Miss Zephyrin Bowden. Her breath stopped. Her pulse spiked. Her brain refused to process the words. This wasn't a typo. This wasn't a mix-up. This was impossible. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and typed into the encrypted app. There's an error in the invitations. Major error. Call me now. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then the message came. No error. Everything is exactly as requested. Her stomach dropped. This says I'm the bride. A pause. You're both. The room tilted. Her vision blurred. She felt the floor under her feet, but not the ground beneath her life. Explain. Right now. Her phone rang. His number. The one he'd never used. She answered with fire in her voice. What did you do? His voice was calm. Too calm. Zeph, I need you to let me explain in person. You need me? You lied to me for 6 months. I never lied. You manipulated me. You used me. You let me plan my own wedding without telling me. I was careful with the truth, he said quietly. But I never lied. She hung up. The invitation slipped from her hands, scattering across the floor like 200 tiny betrayals. Flashback. 6 months earlier. The email arrived at 2 a.m. Exclusive opportunity, confidential client. Initial consultation fee, $10,000. She almost deleted it. Almost. But rent was due in 5 days. Her business was dying. Her bank account held $800 and a prayer. She clicked. The next morning, the money was already in her account. By noon, she was standing in front of a skyscraper she'd only ever walked past, never inside. Security waved her through without asking her name. On the 42nd floor, a woman with a face carved from ice said, Miss Bowden, conference room 3. Zeph walked in trying to look like she belonged. She didn't. 20 minutes later, the door opened. He walked in, dark jeans, black button down, no tie, sharp features, quiet confidence, eyes that saw everything. Dangerous. Her instincts whispered it immediately. Ms. Bowden, he said, thank you for coming. I'm Kang Min-ho. He didn't shake her hand. She didn't offer. Your email was vague, she said. Intentionally. He sat across from her. No laptop, no papers, just his full attention, heavy and unnerving. The client values privacy. The wedding cannot be public knowledge until invitations are sent. Who's getting married? That will be disclosed if you accept the position. She frowned. I can't plan a wedding blind. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. You'll have access to detailed information about the groom. The bride is more complicated. Complicated how? She hasn't been chosen yet. She stared at him. I'm sorry, what? The groom has specific requirements. Several candidates are being considered. Your job is to create wedding scenarios that appeal to each potential bride, while maintaining the groom's standards. Her jaw dropped. This is insane. I'm not doing this. She stood. He didn't stop her. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said, total compensation is $500,000. She sat back down. He continued, $250,000 upon contract signing, the rest upon execution. Her heart pounded. Her business flashed before her eyes, the debt, the stress, the humiliation of failure. Why me? Your work shows creativity, cultural sensitivity, and flawless execution under pressure. These qualities are required. And if I say no, then we find someone else. You keep the consultation fee. He stood. You have until tomorrow at noon. At the door, he paused. Confidentiality is non-negotiable. Then he left her alone with the city skyline and a choice that felt like a trap disguised as salvation. the contract. She should have walked away. Every instinct screamed danger. Every lesson from her mother warned her to run. But desperation is louder than fear. She signed. The next morning, $250,000 hit her account. She cried on her apartment floor, the first time she'd cried in months. Then she got to work. The man who was always there. The encrypted messages came at all hours. Begin venue research. Narrow to 3. Schedule site visits. And Min-ho was always there. Different cars, different clothes, same unreadable expression. He asked strange questions. Does this room make you feel peaceful or excited? What moment would you want to remember forever? What song makes you cry? She answered, thinking he was gathering data for the mysterious bride. She never questioned why he asked her instead of the candidates. She should have. The danger she ignored. One night, surrounded by fabric swatches, she asked, "What do you actually do?" He said, "I handle problems." "What kind of problems?" "The kind people pay to make disappear." A chill ran through her. Later that night, she researched him and found the article. Kang family suspected of transitioning from organized crime into legitimate business. She slammed her laptop shut. She was planning a wedding for the mafia, or something close enough. She should have quit. She didn't, because somewhere between the encrypted messages and late-night meetings, she'd started noticing him, and that was the most dangerous part of all. The next weeks moved like a storm she couldn't outrun. Venue tours, midnight messages, sudden visits. Min-ho was everywhere, always calm, always watching, always one step ahead of her questions. And the questions he asked, they weren't normal. They weren't about color palettes or seating charts. They were about her. The venue that changed everything. On the third site visit, they stood inside a converted barn with exposed beams and chandeliers made from antique bottles. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, scattering gold across the wooden floor. Zeph ran her hand along a long farmhouse table. "This place feels alive," she murmured. Min-ho watched her, not the venue. "You'll love this one," she frowned. "You say that like you already know." "I pay attention." He walked slowly through the space, hands behind his back, eyes scanning everything but always returning to her. "Tell me," he said, stopping beside her, "if you could only remember one moment from your wedding day, what would it be?" She blinked. "Why does that matter for the groom's bride?" "Answer the question." She hesitated. "The moment before the ceremony starts," she said softly, "when everything is quiet, when the world feels like it's holding its breath." He nodded once, like she'd confirmed something he already suspected. "This venue," he said, "is the one." She didn't know why her heart skipped. The questions that got too personal. The encrypted messages became stranger. "What flowers remind you of home? What song makes you cry? If you could wear any color on the most important day of your life, what would it be?" She answered because she thought the groom needed options. She never questioned why the planner was being asked instead of the bride's. She should have. The visits that weren't about work, he started showing up at her tiny office above the coffee shop, always unannounced, always at night, always with that unreadable expression. They'd sit surrounded by fabric swatches and menu samples, the hum of the empty building settling around them. One night, she told him, "I used to reorganize my mother's dinner parties when I was 8. He raised an eyebrow. "Without permission?" "Of course, without permission." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You've always been like this." "Like what?" "Someone who fixes things. Someone who makes chaos look intentional." She looked away, heat rising in her chest. "You don't know me. I know enough." His voice was low, steady, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with crime. The first crack in his mask, 2 months in, she finally asked, "What do you actually do, Min-ho?" He didn't blink. "I handle problems." "What kind of problems?" "The kind people pay to make disappear." Her breath caught. "That's vague and terrifying." "It's honest." He stood, pulling on his jacket. "You should lock your office door when you're here alone. This neighborhood isn't as safe as you think." Then he left, and she realized she wasn't afraid of the neighborhood. She was afraid of how she felt when he walked away. The night she found the truth. She researched him. She shouldn't have, but she did, and she found the article. Kang family suspected of transitioning from organized crime into legitimate business. Her blood ran cold. She slammed her laptop shut. She was planning a wedding for a man connected to organized crime, or worse, for someone in it. She didn't sleep, not because she feared him, but because she feared how much she didn't. The confrontation. He showed up the next evening like he sensed her decision. She didn't let him sit. "I know who you are." He didn't deny it. And I need to know what I'm involved in. Is this wedding even legal? Am I planning some kind of alliance marriage between crime families? No. He stepped closer, voice steady. "The wedding is legal. No one is being forced. You're not in danger." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you." His eyes softened the first time she'd ever seen them do that. "My family's past is complicated. Our present is legitimate. I can't change what we were, but I can control what we're becoming." She swallowed. "Are you dangerous?" A long pause. "Yes." Her pulse spiked. "But not to you," he added quietly. "Never to you." She should have run. Instead, she whispered, "I'm staying on the job. But no more lies." He nodded. "All right." But she didn't know then that the biggest lie wasn't something he said. It was something he didn't. The shift they both felt. The weeks that followed were different, closer, sharper, more dangerous. They worked late nights, their hands brushing over seating charts. Their conversations drifted from logistics to life. He watched her like she was a puzzle he was slowly solving. One night, their fingers touched, reaching for the same paper. She pulled back instantly. "Sorry." "Don't be." He didn't move his hand. "Zeph." Her heart hammered. He never used her nickname. "This job has made my life complicated in ways I didn't expect." She swallowed. "I know the feeling." He exhaled, a sound that felt like a confession. "If circumstances were different, if I were different, I'd ask you to dinner." Her breath caught. "But circumstances aren't different," she whispered. "No." He stepped back, mask sliding into place. "I'll email you about the final walkthrough." He left. And the silence he left behind was louder than any danger she'd ever feared. The days after their confrontation felt different. Not softer, not safer, just charged. Every time he walked into her office, the air shifted. Every time he stood too close, her pulse betrayed her. Every time he looked at her, she felt like he was memorizing her, and she hated that she didn't hate it. She tried to keep things professional. He didn't make it easy. The questions that weren't about work anymore. They were reviewing floral arrangements when he asked, "What scent makes you feel calm?" She blinked. "Why does that matter for the groom's bride?" He didn't answer. He just watched her too closely, too intently, until she finally said, "Jasmine. My grandmother grew it in her backyard." He nodded like he was filing it away somewhere important. Another night, he asked, "If you could choose one moment to relive forever, what would it be?" She frowned. "Min-ho, these questions aren't about the wedding. They're about understanding what matters. To who?" He didn't answer, and she didn't push, because part of her didn't want to know. The moment she realized he was watching her too closely. One evening, she was adjusting a seating chart when he said quietly, "You bite your bottom lip when you're concentrating." She froze. I didn't realize you noticed. I notice everything about you. Her heart stuttered. He didn't look away, didn't apologize, didn't pretend it was a casual observation. He meant it. And that terrified her more than anything she'd found in that article. The night. Everything shifted. They were alone in her office again, the building silent except for the hum of the old refrigerator downstairs. She was sorting through fabric swatches when he said, "You second-guess yourself too much." She looked up sharply. "You don't know that." "I do." He stepped closer. "You're better at this than you think. You're better than most people I've met." Her throat tightened. "You're very confident for someone I know nothing about." He held her gaze. "You know more than you think." She swallowed. "I've been working for you for 2 months, and I still don't know who the groom is." A flicker, something like guilt, crossed his face. "You will." "When?" "Soon." She hated that answer. She hated how calm he was. She hated how much she wanted to trust him anyway. The slip that changed everything. They were reviewing menu options when he said, "The bride will like this." She frowned. "How do you know?" He hesitated, just for a second. But she saw it. "Because," he stopped himself, "because it fits the aesthetic." It was a lie, a small one, but she felt it, and it cracked something open inside her. The night she saw him differently. They were leaving her office late when a group of men walked past on the street, loud, drunk, careless. One of them whistled at her. Before she could react, Min-ho stepped in front of her. Not aggressively, not violently, just decisively. The men quieted instantly. Something in his presence, cold, controlled, lethal, made them step back. He didn't touch her. He didn't speak. He just waited until they passed. Then he turned to her. "You should be more careful." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You scared them." Good. She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt something far more dangerous. Safe. The confession he didn't mean to make a week later. They were reviewing lighting options when their hands brushed again. This time, neither of them pulled away. He looked at her like he was fighting something inside himself. "Zeph." Her breath caught. "Yes?" He exhaled slowly. "This job, it's made my life complicated in ways I didn't expect." Her voice was barely steady. "I know." He stepped closer, too close, and for a moment she thought he might actually touch her. "If circumstances were different," his voice dropped. "If I were different." Her heart pounded. "What then?" "I'd ask you to dinner." She froze. He continued. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere you could talk about anything except work. Somewhere I could learn everything about you that has nothing to do with this wedding." Her chest tightened painfully. "But circumstances aren't different," she whispered. "No." He stepped back, mask sliding into place. "I shouldn't have said anything. Min-ho, I'll email you about the final walkthrough." He left, and she stood there, heart racing, realizing the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling for a man she didn't understand, a man who was hiding something enormous, a man who was planning a wedding for a bride she'd never met, and she was terrified the bride might be her. The invitations arrived on a Thursday. A simple box, cream, gold seal, exactly the design she'd approved. Zeph carried it into her office, humming under her breath, relieved to finally be nearing the finish line. She'd poured herself into this wedding, the colors, the flowers, the music, the venue. It was the most beautiful event she'd ever created. She opened the box, pulled out the first invitation, admired the embossing, checked the spacing, and then her eyes hit the names. "Mr. Kang Min-ho requests the honor of your presence at his marriage to Ms. Zephyrin Bowden." She froze. Her breath vanished. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She read it again, and again, and again. No, no, no. This wasn't real. This wasn't possible. This was a nightmare printed on cardstock. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and typed into the encrypted app. "There's an error in the invitations. Major error. Call me immediately." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then the message came. "No error. Everything is exactly as requested." Her stomach dropped. "This says I'm the bride." A pause. "You're both." Her vision blurred. "Explain. Right now." Her phone rang. His number. The one he'd never used. She answered with fire. "What the hell is this?" His voice was calm. Too calm. "Zeph, I need you to let me explain in person. You let me plan my own wedding for 6 months without telling me. I never lied. You manipulated me. I was careful with the truth." "Semantics," her voice cracked. "You used me. You made me complicit in some kind of twisted scheme. For what? You don't even know me." His voice softened. "I know you better than you think. You know things you manipulated me into telling you." "Zeph." "Don't call me that." She hung up. The box slipped from her hands, invitations scattering across the floor like 200 tiny detonations. She sank to her knees, surrounded by the pieces of a life she didn't agree to. The corte. Her phone rang again, and again, and again. She ignored every call. Then a text came. "I'm outside your office. I'll wait as long as it takes." She looked out the window. His car was parked across the street, sleek, black, expensive, out of place in her neighborhood. He sat inside, motionless, waiting. She should call the police. She should activate the termination clause. She should run. Instead, she grabbed her keys and walked downstairs. The confrontation. He stepped out of the car the moment she approached. He looked different, less composed, less controlled, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Good. He should feel something. "You have 10 minutes, she said. "Talk. Not here. Come with me." She laughed sharp, humorless. "So you can kidnap me?" "No." "Zeph." His voice cracked. "If I wanted to hurt you, I've had 6 months of opportunities." She hated that he was right. 10 minutes, she repeated, "and then I'm done." He opened the passenger door. She hesitated, then got in, because she needed answers more than she needed air. The truth begins. They drove in silence to the waterfront, a quiet pier, empty except for a few dog walkers and a couple taking photos. He parked. His hand stayed on the steering wheel, knuckles white. "I saw you 8 months ago," he said. She blinked. "What?" "At the Chen Martinez wedding." Her breath caught. "You were fixing a centerpiece, completely focused. You didn't notice anyone watching." He swallowed. Then the bride started crying. You took her aside, calmed her down, made her laugh. You held the whole event together like it was nothing. Her chest tightened. "I asked who you were," he continued. "Found out you built your business from nothing, that you were drowning in debt but still gave your clients everything." He finally looked at her. "I wanted to meet you, but I knew what would happen." "What would happen?" she whispered. "You'd Google me, you'd see the articles, and you'd run." She didn't deny it. He exhaled shakily. "So I created a scenario where you could get to know me without the baggage." Her voice broke. "You tricked me. I gave myself a chance. You stole my choice." He flinched. "You're right." She stared at him, fury and heartbreak warring inside her. "Why me?" His answer was immediate. "Because I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night." Her breath hitched. He continued. "My family expects me to marry someone they choose, someone from the right background, someone who understands our world." She swallowed hard. "So you thought tricking me was the solution?" "I thought if I showed them I was serious about someone extraordinary, they'd back off." Her heart twisted painfully. "You don't know me," he shook his head. "I know you bite your lip when you're concentrating. I know you listen to Nina Simone when you work late. I know you keep a photo of your grandmother in your wallet. I know you're loyal, brilliant, and convinced you're not enough." Her eyes burned. "That doesn't give you the right to decide my future." "No," he whispered. "It doesn't." He reached into his jacket and pulled out one of the invitations. "They haven't been mailed," her breath caught. "Because I'm not asking as a groom." He looked at her raw, unguarded, terrified. "I'm asking as a man who fell in love with you." The words hit her like a blow. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She couldn't speak. And that was when everything truly began to unravel. Silence settled between them, thick and suffocating. The pier lights flickered across the water, casting long shadows over the dashboard. Zeph stared straight ahead, unable to look at him, unable to breathe, unable to understand how her life had twisted into this impossible moment. He held the invitation between his fingers like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "I'm not asking you to marry me because of a contract," he said quietly. "I'm asking because somewhere in the last 6 months I fell in love with you." Her chest tightened painfully. "You don't get to say that," she whispered. "Not after what you did." He swallowed hard. "I know. You lied to me. I hid things from you." "That's the same thing." He shook his head. "No. A lie is saying something untrue. I never did that. I just didn't tell you everything." She laughed a broken, disbelieving sound. "You built an entire fake wedding around me." "It wasn't fake." Her head snapped toward him. "Excuse me." His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. "Every detail you chose, every flower, every color, every song, I wanted them because they were yours." Her heart pounded. "You let me design a wedding I didn't know was mine. Because I didn't want to influence you." "Influence me?" she repeated, stunned. "You manipulated me." He flinched like she'd struck him. "I know. You stole my choice. I'm giving it back now." He turned fully toward her, eyes dark and raw. "Zeph, you can walk away. Right now. I won't stop you. I won't follow you. I won't contact you again." Her breath caught. "Or," he held out the invitation, "and you can choose to stay. Not because of the wedding, not because of my family, but because you feel something too." Her pulse hammered in her ears. "I don't know what I feel." "You do." She shook her head. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm confused. And underneath all of that?" She didn't answer. She couldn't, because the truth was terrifying. The moment she breaks. She opened the car door and stepped out, needing air, needing space, needing distance from the man who had turned her world inside out. He followed her, but kept several feet away. "Zeph, don't." Her voice cracked. "You don't get to say my name like that." He stopped, hands at his sides, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. "I never meant to hurt you, but you did. I know. You should have told me." "I was afraid." She turned. "Of what?" His answer was immediate. "Of losing you before I ever had a chance." Her breath hitched. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. "I've never wanted anything the way I want you." Her heart twisted painfully. "You don't even know me." "I know enough to know I want more." She closed her eyes. "This is insane." "Yes, this is wrong. Probably. This is dangerous." He stepped closer. "Everything worth having is." Her eyes snapped open. "Stop." He froze. "If you take one more step, I swear I'll—" "You'll what?" His voice was soft, not mocking, not challenging, just waiting. She didn't know the answer. The truth she can't escape. He looked at her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. "Tell me you feel nothing," he said quietly. "Tell me you never felt anything. Tell me you don't think about me when I'm not there." Her throat tightened. "Tell me," he whispered, "and I'll walk away." She opened her mouth, but no words came out, because she couldn't lie, not about this, not to him, not to herself. He saw the truth in her silence. His breath shuddered. Zeph. She stepped back. Don't. Just let me. Don't. Her voice broke. I can't do this. Not right now. Not like this. He nodded slowly. Pain flickered across his face, real, raw, unguarded. Then take the time you need. He placed the invitation on the hood of the car. But know this. He met her eyes. I'm not asking for an answer tonight. Her heart pounded. I'm asking for a chance. She swallowed hard. I don't know if I can give you that. He nodded once. Then I'll wait. She shook her head. You can't. I will. Min Ho. He stepped back, giving her space. When you're ready, he said softly, you'll know where to find me. She stared at him, torn between fury and longing, betrayal and something she didn't want to name. And if I never come? He held her gaze. Then I'll spend the rest of my life wishing you had. Her breath caught. He turned, walked back to the car, and got in. The engine started. He didn't look back. He drove away slowly, like leaving her physically hurt him. Zeph stood alone on the pier, the invitation trembling in her hand, the night air cold against her skin. She didn't chase him. She didn't call out. She didn't move, because she knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous, and she had no idea which choice would destroy her.